out there? Yes. I know it's late, and I heard you guys, a lot of you were up really late last night, so we'll try to keep you awake now. So I'm Renee. I'm going to be talking to you about B2B optimization, specifically B2B lead gen. But more so, I want to give you some tactics and some ideas that you can take back with you to your companies or your clients. So we'll talk through what makes B2B different than B2C, what metrics matter, and how to move the needle on those metrics with your optimization efforts. So first of all, can I see a show of hands for those of you who do work with B2B, either with your company or with your clients? Oh, wow, it's a lot. Yay. That's awesome. OK. So even for those of you who do not work with B2B, I think you'll find some things that resonate in here with you, and you never know when you might work with B2B in the future. But I'm really happy to see all those hands going up. Nice. I want to start by giving you a little visualization of how a B2B sale differs from a B2C sale. So I want you to imagine that you are buying new running shoes. And for those of you who don't wear running shoes, just indulge me. So maybe you know what you always buy the same shoes, so you just need a new pair. Or maybe you went to one of those fancy stores where you run on a treadmill and they tell you what you should wear. So you know what shoes you want. You know what size you need and what color you want. And really, it's just a matter of finding the best price. So you go out there and you find the best price. And I know from yesterday that the bulk of you are Amazon Prime customers, like I am. So you probably end up on Amazon. You make that sale super easy. And 2 days later, your shoes show up on your doorstep. No fuss, no muss. If they don't fit or they fall apart or something's wrong, you can easily send them back. You can even stick them in an Amazon locker. So now I want you to imagine that you work for a company. And your boss tells you that in addition to your normal job role, you're going to be part of a team evaluating and selecting business intelligence software. So there's going to be maybe 25 or more people in the company that are going to use this software. You need to figure out what's the best thing. So you start Googling business intelligence software, and you quickly realize there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of vendors out there. The pricing's kind of all over the place. And you know going in, your budget is somewhere around 100K. You're kind of gathering requirements from all over your organization. Finance has their things. IT has their things. Everybody has functionality requirements. And so you really come to realize, I have a lot to learn. And if I screw this up, this is a big deal. This isn't shoes that I can just send back. This will be meaningful to the company, and it could be detrimental to me personally in my career. So B2B is definitely different. Let's talk about the main ways that it is. So first of all, it's typically an offline sale. So while the research is being done online, and lots of it, typically by the time you get to the sale, it's being done with a salesperson. It's usually a higher price deal, complicated pricing structures. It's usually a really long sales cycle. So a typical B2B sales cycle can be 18 months or more. And in that cycle, there's a lot of research and requirements gathering and a lot of stuff going on in that time. There's usually not one person who's making the decision. So it's usually a team of people, and while there might be one ultimate decision maker, it's usually a buying team. So there's other people that are influencing and recommending things in that process. And then finally, it can be risky. So again, you can't just send back the shoes if they don't fit. This is a big deal. If you implement some $100,000 software and it takes God knows how long to implement, and then it was wrong, what does that mean? What does that mean for your business and for you? And humans are naturally risk averse. So all that to say, what does that mean from an optimization perspective? What does the problem become? The problem is, okay, then what am I optimizing? What is my conversion point? It's obviously not a shopping cart, so what is it? What metrics am I supposed to be looking at? And where do I even start? Where do I focus? So we're going to talk through all that, and we're going to start by talking about metrics. So with B2B, conversion really isn't just one thing. It's not just one metric. Now, typically, of course, my presentation is called lead gen, right? So the holy grail for B2B tends to be leads, right? Getting information from somebody, they're filling out a form, maybe they're getting a download or a video. And that's super important, and we all want to do that, but there's a lot of other information, a lot of other metrics that you also need to be looking at. For example, lead quality. Hannah talked about this a lot yesterday. It doesn't do you much good if you can generate hundreds and hundreds of leads that are not able to be acted upon. if they're Mickey Mouse or ASDF, or your sales team thinks they're all crap. So lead quality is an important factor to also be looking at. What are the users doing? So when they're on your website or your emails, what are they clicking specifically? How deep are they going? How much content are they consuming? Where are they leaving? Where are the drop-off points? Who are they? Are they in your target market, demographically, firmographically, behaviorally? Maybe you know, hopefully you do, that there are certain things, maybe it's pages that people visit, maybe it's videos that they look at, that people who do those things tend to turn into customers. So that's important. And then finally, how do you tie all this back to the downstream activity and the downstream value of a user? So all this data coming from analytics, Salesforce automation, marketing automation, even your email tools, super important to be looking at to get ideas for testing, but also to tie back into your test results and changes that you make. So we're going to spend a bulk of our time together today talking about the top of the funnel. Now, that's not to say that other things are not important. So Tara talked yesterday about flipping the funnel and focusing on customer retention, which is super, super important. So this isn't to say that you should do this instead, but I'm here to say that I think focusing on the top of the funnel is still very, very important. That's where your relationship is starting with your future customers. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart because at TechTarget, this is kind of what we do and what I spend a lot of my time thinking about. So at TechTarget, we are a global B2B technology publisher. So we have a large network of websites, over 140 technology-specific websites. We have over 1,000 people writing content in these areas between full-time editorial staff and expert contributors. We have a lot of registered users. We have a lot of traffic, most of which is organic, which is great for me because it gives me a huge playground for testing. Now these sites, I'm not referring to techtarget.com. That is definitely not our content network. Our content network, most of these sites tend to be on this theme of search. So for example, search CIO, search business analytics, search networking. So we have a lot of these search sites in niche areas of technology. And then we have some broader sites like computerweekly.com. We have some product review sites. We have very specific regional and country-specific sites. But most of them are these search sites, and it's the US search sites that we do where we do most of our testing. Now our clients are technology marketers, anyone from Dell and IBM to smaller and mid-market companies that want to reach our audience. And we do that with display advertising programs, lead gen, and more data-driven customer intent data products. And so what I think about all day is getting that traffic and getting all those people to tell me who they are, right? So I need them to give me information about them, to register with us, TechTarget, so that we then have their information, and then we can promote content from our clients, such as white papers, and have lead transactions occur and more data being tracked. And so I really love this quote from Neil Patel: "The gateway between your site and the visitor is the lead generation form." So people like to say bad things about lead generation forms, and it's kind of like you love it, but you hate it. Can't live with it, can't live without it. We do a lot of testing, and we do a lot of focusing on our lead gen forms, and we've done pretty much you name it, we've done it probably, kind of testing. There's a lot of great information out there in terms of best practices and ideas for testing. What I'm going to do today is share with you some of our tests that we've run that are maybe a little bit more outside the box, because you can find a lot of really great ideas online. I'm hoping that this will spark you to think with some ideas that you can do. And so I want to start with a test we ran on corporate email. So what we hear from our clients is free email addresses suck. Don't give them to us anymore. Free mail, by free mail I mean so-and-so from hotmail.com. So what they know from their own scoring systems is that free email addresses don't convert to customers. So those people don't become customers, so don't even give them to me. We know from our own data, revenue per user data, that people with free email addresses are worth 2.7 times less than people with a business email address. So we know, yeah, they're right. So what we did is we ran a test where we required a corporate email address. So we changed the label on the form, and then we had an error situation where if you entered one of a list of free email addresses, you got an error message. So we ran this test with over 544,000 visitors for a little over 30 days, and it did reach a statistical significance of 99%, all caveats of statistical significance from Chad aside. And what we ended up finding was a slight decrease in conversion. So by implementing this, requiring a corporate email, we saw a drop in conversion of about 6%. After we implemented this, we actually saw a little bit more over time. We like to track things after we implement them to see how that compares to what we saw during a test. But we were okay with that conversion drop. Why? Because the quality was so much higher. So we have an algorithm that measures the bad and fake email addresses and takes them out. And what we saw was a 21% drop in bad and fake email addresses by implementing this. So two things. One, something really, really simple had a really huge impact. And two, your holy grail isn't always the holy grail. In this case, quality was much, much more important, and another thing that's important to look at. So I think everybody knows it's a general fact that if you have less fields, you get higher conversion, right? If you have a lot of fields, lower conversion. Well, the conundrum that we have is that we have 14 fields of information on our form. That's a lot. And yes, we've already taken out, we're not asking you for facts or any crazy things like that, but there are 14 required fields, and that is hard to optimize for. So what we wanted to do was see, is there a way that we can get information from users without asking them for it, therefore ask them less, and make it easier and increase conversions? And so what we did is we ran a test where we were doing some IP matching in the back end as well as company append matching. So that if we could recognize who you are from your IP or your company, we didn't have to ask you that firmographic stuff. So this was a test we focused just on US visitors, and the reason for that is because the data that we had, the IP data and all that, was really more available for US. So we had about a little over 27,000 US visitors in this test that we ran for a little over 2 weeks. Again, reaching a statistical significance of 99%. And what we saw during the test was a huge increase in conversion. So about 30% increase in conversion during the test. We implemented it, and over time, we see more about a 19% increase, which still is huge and great, and we love it. That is on the US side. Curiously, we did, when we implemented this, we then compared, like, did rates go up for international too? And they went up a little bit, not a lot, but again, the data that we have is really much more focused on US, so that kind of explains that. So as I said, we do a lot of form testing and things with form engagement. And this is an example of one of our main page types. It's an article. So the registration experience you see here is one of our common ones, and it's gated content. So you're reading an article. In this case, someone's reading about scaling out SQL Server applications, very technical. And you start reading it, and then you're asked to register. What we wanted to do, this is a two-step process. So first we get your email, and then we get the rest. And we know that works better for us because of prior testing. So we wanted to see how to make this experience more fluid. And so here's how the control version worked. After you entered your email, you were sent to a separate registration form where all those 14 fields were there. If you then successfully completed all 14 fields, you were then sent back to your article where you could read it ungated. We wanted to see if we can make that a little easier. So we had a version where after you enter your email, we actually put a light box, so a modal window where the rest of the page kind of blurred out, and then we asked for your information there instead. And then we also had a version where we dynamically expanded the form on the page after you entered your email address. So this was a test that had over 500,000 visitors. It ran for 22 days, reaching a 99% statistical significance level. And the winner by far was the dynamic form. We saw a 53% increase in conversions with this dynamic form. And when I say conversions, I have to specify real quick. We actually measure conversion in two ways with our registration. So we have what we call an email conversion. That's people who give us the email but then abandon and don't do the rest. And then we have full profile conversion, which is people who give us all 14 fields. And this 53% increase was on the full profile conversion. Now, it's also worth mentioning the Lightbox did pretty well. There was a 36% increase in conversions with that. So that was a good experience too, but the dynamic form just hit it out of the park, and that's what we have implemented on our sites today. So sometimes just making it easier for somebody and not distracting them and bringing them somewhere else just can make a huge difference. And then something we've been talking a lot about lately is Optin. And obviously, if we have gated content, you're opting in to that content. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about Optin in a more of a legal perspective. So our legal team has been kind of on us about, we think we need to add a checkbox to our registration forms because we're not specific enough with our consent. And obviously, we're compliant with canned spam. We're all good with that. But there's this thing called GDPR. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, General Data Protection Regulation, which is going to start being enforced this May. And it's basically a way of standardizing privacy data across Europe for European user data. And so because of that, our legal team has been like, there's a little more stringent in terms of what consent is. So we really think we need to add a checkbox. And then we started hearing it from some clients too, especially in Germany, and we thought, okay, look, we can't do this. This is gonna kill conversion. We're not doing it, but fine, we'll just run a test. We'll show you how bad this affects conversion, and then you can leave us alone about it. So we went ahead and ran a test. This is our control version. So we do have all the T&Cs there. We say, here's our link to our privacy policy, our terms and conditions. Here's a link to our partners page that explains that you might get contacted if you register with us by either us or one of our clients. So we tested that against a version with a very specific opt-in. So you have to check this box in order to continue with registration that says, yes, I understand all this. And then we had legal's favorite, the one with 2 checkboxes. So they wanted us to actually break it out and say one checkbox for yes, terms and conditions and privacy, and the second one, yeah, I understand I might get contacted. So this was actually run in 2 test ways because first we ran the 1 checkbox and then we ran the 2. So each of them had lots of visitors in them. They each ran for about 30 days, achieving 95% significance. And so of course what we found was what? That our conversion rate tanked, right? It didn't. Not only did it not tank, it actually increased. I mean, I was shocked. We were, Michael talked the other day, like you have to be willing to be wrong sometimes. And, I was wrong. Not that this is the first time I've been wrong, but definitely we were so wrong. We couldn't believe it that we actually saw increases here. So we saw anywhere from a 3 to 11% increase in the full profile conversions, and even more, way higher for the email conversions. Now those ranges you see there are for US on the smaller side and international on the higher side. So definitely higher lifts internationally, which kind of makes sense since a lot of this fear is coming more from the GDPR on the international side. But even with those email increases, that's even good for us because we have ways of appending data for people on the back end to try to progress them to be a full profile user. So you could have knocked us over with a feather with this one. We were shocked, we were wrong, but sometimes sometimes you take the gamble and surprised at what happens. So okay, you've now generated the lead. So some people could say the hard part's over, but not really. Now the fun begins. Now is your chance to keep them engaged. And remember, this is a long sales process, so they're probably not just coming one time to your site over a long period of time. So how can you help them have a good experience? Remember, try to empathize with them. What they're going through, a lot of it's very stressful. They're trying to figure out what's going on. How can you make them smarter? How can you give them a good experience? And there's a lot of really amazing stuff we could talk about here with targeted data, like Ed was talking about yesterday, and personas and all that. I don't, unfortunately, have time I had to cut out a lot of stuff out of my presentation, but I want to talk about engagement with some simpler things that I think are often overlooked. So we like to talk about this concept of member activation. So we call people members once they register with us. And so activation meaning moving them along their cycle faster than they would normally go. Email is a great mechanism for this. I'm sure a lot of you do this. We do this. We shoot off an automated email after somebody registers. Hopefully you have really good calls to action in those emails. But you can also do this within their experience. And kind of nudge them along. So Twitter actually does a really good job of this after you sign up. They're saying, okay, here's some people you need to follow. Why wait, right? So we wanted to test this on our own sites. So we know, historically, from looking at our data, that 28% of our users, after they register, generate an initial lead within 6 weeks. And when I say generate a lead, that's generate a lead that we can send along to one of our clients. So within 6 weeks, 28% of them are generating an initial lead. So we decided to try to nudge them along on the site faster. So we tried some different ways of different placements, different messaging, and basically instantly, as soon as they registered, we showed them something that said, hey, you might be interested in this relevant content. And it was maybe a white paper from one of our clients. And what we ended up finding in the test was that those users that we nudged, we saw 30% of them instantly generate a lead. So instantly, where 28% were generating a lead before within 6 weeks, we had people instantly generating a lead within this test. Then we wanted to see how does this translate downstream. So this test was a smaller test, partly because we targeted it to less, and also because we're talking about registered users here, and most of our tests were including all the anonymous traffic as well. So this had a little over 2,800 of our registered members in the test. We did run this for longer than we normally run tests, and we followed these people for a period of 6 months. And so what did we see on the downstream? Historically, we know that once somebody generates a lead, 24% of them will generate another lead within 30 days after that. What about our user? What about our nudged group? Our nudged group, 34% of them generated additional leads within 30 days after their initial lead. So not only were we able to get people to do something faster, but they ended up doing more down the line as well, simply because we nudged them within their experience. Again, another simple thing. And then you really can't talk about engagement without talking about user experience. So I challenge every single one of you to take a step back and look at your user experience. Or better yet, take a page from Elle's book and do some research, user research. Because we're all too close to our sites to really see things, right? So this is an example of one of our article pages. You kind of just want to throw up on it, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, right? I mean, you can be honest. I know. There's a lot of things going on. There's ads, there's boxes. Where's the content? I'm just trying to read the content. What's going on here? Which is exactly what our users told us. So what we wanted to do was streamline this experience, give the users a better experience, and increase engagement at the same time. Because we believe that if you give your users what they want and give them a better experience, you will also result in, it will be positive for you as well. So these are actually long scrolling pages, so I'm going to show you in more of a wireframe format what we did. So here is the original page. It's a 3-column format. There's a lot of boxes and ads and things going on the page. So all we really did was change the layout of the page to a 2-column structure. We took out some of those boxes. But what you see here, this lorem ipsum text, is actually the exact same text on both sides. So you can see how much you can see now above the fold. And so we ran this test. It had a huge amount of visitors, over 1.3 million, ran for 50 days. And what we ended up seeing was pretty much increases across the board. The one I really want to point out as my favorite is the 28% increase in full article consumption, meaning we were tracking how far people were getting, how far they were scrolling, and 28% more people got all the way through the articles. That's huge for us, and our editorial team was thrilled with this. And so my main point that I want to make about this is when you're testing engagement, there isn't just one metric that you should be looking at. Now, of course, every test you have one main success metric, but I would argue that all of these metrics together paint a picture of engagement that you might not otherwise see, and you might end up changing click patterns without necessarily nudging something like pages per visit. Or in this case, one of the things we tested was moving that second ad out of the body into the rail, because we thought that would be better for engagement, right? And it was, but the click-through rates on the ads went down, so the ad product manager was like, no, 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 that's not going to work. So you have to look at all of the metrics together in order to really make the right decision moving forward. So 2 other quick things I want to leave you with. One is to not forget about mobile. So in B2B, it's really easy for us to do this, right? Because we don't have as much mobile traffic at all, and we certainly aren't getting conversions on mobile, right? Well, the fact of the matter is that the guy or gal who's out there searching for business intelligence software by day is buying shoes by night. And so they're expecting the same type of digital experience. And if yours sucks, then they're out of there immediately. So at a minimum, look at your mobile experience and see, caveats aside, if there's any low-hanging fruit that you might be able to take care of without doing cumbersome testing. And then finally, if you take nothing else away from this entire presentation today, this should be it. Please pay attention to your page speed. This is painful for me because this is something we have been going through recently. According to Akamai and Gomez.com, 47% of users expect sites to load in 2 minutes or less. 57% of them will leave if it takes 3 or more seconds. Okay, that has a direct impact on conversion. That is directly correlated with conversion. Conversion rate is a measure of the denominator is still visitors, right? So if a whole bunch of those visitors are leaving before you even get a chance to engage with them, you might be doing everything else right, but you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So there's a lot of ways to measure page speed. I have some of them written here, easy and free. Talk to your engineering team. Measure your page speed. There's a lot of reasons why it might be slow. I mean, for us, we had things like the way the images were loading, the way our Optimizely snippet was loading. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's not usually just one thing. So please, please, please pay attention to that, look into it, and talk to your engineering team, please. Okay, so to put it all together, first of all, remember that the B2B buyers are different. They are going through a long cycle that is potentially stressful to them, and they really just want to learn. Focus on the top of the funnel, not at the expense of other things, but definitely focus there and create that relationship to begin with. And once you have it, engage with them all along their life cycle. Don't ignore your mobile experience, because people expect to have the same digital experiences everywhere. And if your site sucks, there's a lot of other places where they can go. And then finally, don't shoot yourself in the foot because your site is slow and everything you do is for naught. Thank you.
Thank you very much.